All right, everybody, let's get started, shall we? Good afternoon. Welcome to BSides Las Vegas Proving Ground. This talk is Burpsuite Team Collaborator. Our speaker, we're lucky to have him today, is Tanner Barnes. A couple of announcements before we get started. We want to thank our sponsors, especially our Inner Circle sponsors, Critical Stack and Velamel, and our stellar sponsors, Amazon, BlackBerry, and the National Security Agency, my favorite. It's their support, along with our other sponsors and donors and volunteers, that make this event possible, so thank you all. These talks are being streamed live. As a courtesy to our speaker and audience, we ask that you check to make sure your cell phones are set to the silent position. If you have questions, please use the audience microphone so that YouTube can hear you. Just raise your hand, and I'll bring the microphone to you. Although we may only have one microphone, so that may be a juggling.
I'll just repeat the question.
Okay. All right. We'll figure it out. With that said, let's get it started. Please welcome Tanner Barnes.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to thank Tom. He was my mentor for this whole thing. This being my first time speaking at a conference, so he was a lot of help in making sure the slides looked somewhat presentable and I didn't sound like a complete fool. So we'll see how well he did. It's all on him if this doesn't go well. It's not me. Right, so my name is Tanner Barnes. This is a Burpsuite plugin that I built for allowing collaborative web app testing. So a little bit about who I am. I'm a full stack, I'm a full service penetration tester. I work for a consultant firm doing everything from red teaming to social engineering. When I'm not doing that, I get the pleasure of building tools that make my life and other lives of hackers more easy. And then before all that fun stuff, I was just your average full stack developer writing software for various different companies. So show of hands real quick so I haven't engaged the audience. Who has used Burpsuite? Oh, perfect. This slide is way easier. For those people in the middle who don't necessarily know what it is, right? It is what's called it's a web proxy. So any requests, when you set it up with your browser, when you make a request for google.com, it will go through Burp, log that request in clear text, and then you can toy with it, do what you'd like, and then send it on its way. So it's pretty much the de facto tool for any type of web application testing. So a little bit of story time here. It's really just kind of a manifesto for why this came to be. So in my job, I typically deal with some more junior penetration testers or people who maybe were less known to this type of space, right? And it was 1 week where I was on a dual engagement on a web app, and I had to keep getting up, going across the room, look at their burp window, see what they might be doing, go back, sit down. Later in the day, there'd be another problem. And then about halfway through the week, I thought, well, let's just solve the getting up thing. Just export your project and mail it to me, which worked, except by the end of the week, that project was 5 gigabytes and was impossible to ship around, except with these like giant like file transfers that you have to log into a third app. So like it was a pain. So this is a week of this. I've gotten none of my work done because I'm like just standing over their shoulder, like here's how you do cross-site scripting. And I was just furious over the weekend, and I thought someone has solved this problem. This is so dumb. It's been like a day, and I was like, well, no one has. And being the true developer that I am, I was like, well, I've got this. I can do this. So that's really what birthed this tool is, and I was looking at the Burpsuite APIs, which you can see there in the extension store, and there was this just beautiful API request where it will take an HTTP request from the proxy, turn it into bytes, and then you can do whatever you want with it. And I thought, well, why don't I just grab a chat server? Instead of sending text, I'll just send the bytes of the request, and it worked. So in a day, over the weekend, I had the nuts and bolts of what is the meat of a Burpsuite Team Collaborator. So this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, right? If you look at like what can we do to collaboratively work in Burpsuite, we're very limited, right? You can export and merge project files, but there's a lot of cons that come with that. They're point in time, right? So when you do it, that's it. If the second you send me that and I'm midway like typing my password to that file share and you're like, oh wait, I figured it out, well you've got to re-export it and resend it to me. Even if we do that, like I said, the projects grow to massive sizes, especially if we're dealing with some type of app where you would need a collaborative type of workload. And it's just a repeated process, right? I'm gonna have to, when I fix or find out what the solution is, I've got to export it, send it back to you, and it's just a complete waste of everyone's time. So that's what we're here to solve today. So what the Collaborator does is it allows multiple testers, 2 to N, to connect to one central server, and every in-scope request that you have, I will see in real time, and every request I make, you will see in real time. So it allows you to remotely, anywhere in the world, with 2 or plus people, collaboratively work on the same web app at the same time. So how it does it is pretty simple. It's your standard client-server architecture. If you really want to boil this down, I've made a glorified chat server, but it's still cool. So the client is written in a Burpsuite plugin in Java because Jython is gross and you should never write anything in Jython. Don't do it. I tried for like a week. I was like, oh, I love Python. And I was like, I'm not writing a Java class in a Python file. Like, I've got better things to do. So that was done. I was like, we'll just do Java. And Go, that one's the more fun one. I never learned Go, and I saw some cool projects from some coworkers in Go, and I thought, well, I'm doing this, let's learn Go. So the server's written in Go. It also has a nice ancillary benefit that the server, when you compile it, is cross-compatible, right? So when you build this thing, it can run on Windows, Linux, your phone maybe. You shouldn't do that, but maybe you could. I've actually never tried that. Someone should try to run this server on their phone. That would be pretty dope. So let's look at like some of the things we can do with this plugin, right? So you can, in this plugin, share scope with the whole team, right? So when you join a room, which we'll show in a second, you can set the scope for that room and push that scope to all the other testers. So you can, in a click of a button, you can have 10 testers all with the same scope and no confusion about like, what API are we doing? Like, what app is this? They're all on the same page. This one is pretty useful, especially if you've got people who like to troll, which is obviously no hacker in this room, by all means. You can mute anybody in the room or the entire team in general. So that's definitely a big help for all of us. You can also say you're working on something that you'd rather not send anybody, or you're going somewhere maybe no one else should see. I won't judge. You can pause your requests and make sure those don't actually ever get sent to the server until you're ready to send them. And the final like large feature is you can share whole requests or individual ones with the whole group or a single team member, right? So if, say, I join your project a week late and there's this API I really need you to see, I can right-click inside the target map, pick that request or the whole top-level domain, and send it straight to you and you only, and you're immediately caught up on all the work I've done for the last week. If we look at like some tool specifics, kind of like drilling a little bit down, you can do that same sharing with both repeater and intruder payloads. The repeater is probably the most fun, especially if you're looking at something that's really a tough nut to crack, like a weird XXE or an SSRI vulnerability. Maybe I'm not good at those, but I found it. I can ship that off to a better tester. He can toy with it, fix it, get it working, and send it back to me, and I can send it and see how it works without ever having to like, I've seen people who've done this and I've done it, like try to like copy a whole burp request like into a Slack window and like, yeah, this will go well. Like, here's this binary file I'm sending. I'm just gonna like paste it in ASCII and like hope it transfers well back to burp. It's just a terrible idea, right? So that's immediately solved because we're transferring it straight to bytes and then back into a burp object. So it doesn't do any type of weird like encoding on its way there. I will say, we'll cover it here, right? So this is something I talked about earlier. The server allows multiple rooms at once, right? So you can have a top-level server for your whole organization and then separate team rooms for all the projects you're running without having to spin up individual servers. A part here I didn't put on the slides, but should have. My apologies. All of this is AES encrypted, and shortly, I haven't got it fully working yet. By version 2, probably the end of the week, each room will be individually AES encrypted, so any one room doesn't know what any other room is doing on a project. So they are all individually siloed and have their own work streams. So here's where we're going to walk through the fun part. There is a demo. This is not something I just made up. It's like a big con. I actually do have a working product. Right, so this is the UI. Can everyone see that, by the way? I hope so. No? I know. You know what? I know what I did wrong. I didn't switch it in the slides. I have a better video. way better, right? That was like the first thing I got on Monday. They were like, we're not like, wait, no one has a magnifying glass in here. So this is the UI, right? So you have, oh, I have a pointer. So I have your display name, right, which is unique to you. You've got the server address, the port that it runs on. Currently it's tied to 88 or 8989. I'm fixing that this week as well. Set it to whatever port you like. Have fun with it. This server password is also the AES encrypted key. It's generated when you start the server, and then when I fix it, will be generated when you create a room. So that's unique to the server, and that's how you authenticate to it. So we're connecting, right? You see here on the right, there's no rooms, and that's just like the default setting once you're on the server. There's no rooms created. So this is the two clients. For a lot of this demo, we'll be zooming in and out of different parts. This is probably the biggest show of it. This is two burp windows side by side, right? Two separate clients. This one is actually on the proxy. It's actually connected. This one is not connected at all to the proxy. No requests are going through here. So here on the left, I'm creating a new room. That's another kind of weird thing. That's a Java issue. Java creates pop-up windows on the main screen. So this is actually a bigger monitor, and my laptop is below it. That's something I'm also fixing just to do it in whatever screen you're in, but that's pretty trivial. So that's the window name for the server that we're creating. So you can see here on the left, that's you, right, in the server, and then when I make the room, that's pushed to all the other clients. So this is that new room I made. Most of the UI here is right-click menu, so you just right-click in there and hit join, and then immediately you can see both testers are in the room, and we're ready to get to the actual fun part. So this is really quick. That's just leaving the room, rejoining. Pretty simple stuff. So here's where the real fun part is, and it happens really quick. So here on the left, this is test.com coming in, and we're pushing it live to the other client without ever being on Burp. And you can see it's all requests. It's not just the top level one. So here in this next part, I'm showing actually sending specific requests. So I'm deleting YouTube in an idea that maybe I haven't actually gotten to that API. I'm joining the server. So we go to share requests, and we do to group, and immediately it's all sent over in real time. And this is just to show you don't have to necessarily do the whole thing, right? Maybe there's like a specific API request, and we can send just that one specifically, right? And we'll only get just that API if you don't want to bog someone down with an entire workload. This is muting, right? There's also a super useful feature for some things I have coming in 2.0. You'll see that where muting will be a real big feature. So here you can see we muted ourselves, and I don't think I can go back really easily, but I muted myself, and you're never going to get requests from that user. This is the sharing scope, right? So I set a scope here on client 1, test.com. We use set room scope, and it's pushed immediately to all clients there. And just like, say you're late to a project, and I don't have the APIs, but I'm trying to get up to date, I can just do get room scope, and I will pull that scope from the server and be right up and running. So you don't necessarily have to start at the same time. This is the opposite of muting, right? This is pausing yourself, where you'll get the requests, and the other clients won't ever actually get them until you unmute yourself. Oh, so this is the other fun part. So this is the repeater payloads, right? So this is a repeater payload I've made, say API, right? And I do share repeater payload, and we're going to send it to the group. Every group's got that repeater payload exactly how I make it. Now maybe I only need one team member who's really good at this next part. And so it's the same thing, just like sharing them in the top level, right? I can send them specifically to a teammate. We can do the same thing with Intruder and send it straight to both. This is actually something, if you'd like to help me out, Burpsuite does not actually, and this is maybe the one bad thing I have to say about Burpsuite, but it's very minor. You can't actually share Intruder payloads with your set custom indexes. So you can send the payload, but it will only use the default ones. If I have the indexes, I can make it, but I can't actually get that information from the UI. So if you'd like to hit up Portswigger and ask them on my behalf to make that available, that would be amazing. Or tell me I'm wrong. I honestly might be wrong, so who knows? So this is the same thing, right? Just in Intruder. And that is the demo, but wait. Oh man. PowerPoint. But wait, there's more. So these are some things I'm working on pretty actively here in the week. I've actually demoed this to a couple people. They got to see it today ahead of time. So one thing you'll notice if you pay kind of attention when you use it in full screen, the only person who's going to see findings from like the passive scanner is the person who makes the initial request, right? So I'll push the request and the response to your burp, but you won't see the passive findings. Now the nice thing is we can actually push those to your client, and it's pretty simple. So here in the next like week, I'll probably have it so you will also, if I like go to an API and it passively detects like SQL injection, that finding will get pushed to you and also stored locally on the server, so you can actually from a server side just see the collective findings of a whole room. Another thing, super simple, I just haven't gotten to yet, sharing of cookie jars. This is actually very useful as well if you're doing collaborative testing and I've got a set of creds I've found and I authenticate to it. When you do that in Burpsuite, it stores that session cookie in Burp. So instead of me having to like get on Slack and like type you the credentials, it will just push that cookie to your cookie jar and you can just refresh the page and be me or whoever you'd like to be in that type of room scope. Pushing findings between clients goes with the findings on the server, right? And this is the one I'm most fond of. I got this 90% of the way there. So when you go to Repeater in version 2, you'll be able to see another context menu that does create a link. And what that will do is take that request, build a base64 hash of that, and then append it to a custom URL handler. And then what you can do is say you're a person who does like guides, right? You did some cool walkthrough on a hack the box, right? And you wanted to like, you're building your guide to like teach the community. You can take that link, embed it in your Medium post or what have you. And if you click on that link while using my Burp plugin, it will inject that into your Repeater payload. So you can literally do play along like walkthroughs of hack the box type things. Another one that I have working now, you can save connection settings. So if you're always going to the same server, if you close Burp or close the extension and reload it, you'll get those connection settings back. That's just a little helpful. And then again, for you guys, I'm sure there's something I've thought of that would be amazing for this tool. And so that's one thing I would like the community's help with is getting that information. So that's part of this, right? So this is where the code is. You can find that here. The first one is the client, that's the Java Burp extension, and then the server is the Go server that will help you run them. And seriously, please, someone try to run this on a phone. It would be amazing. Please submit issues. I've already had some people tell me some things that could probably be better. Please do those. If you'd like to help, I'm always open for PRs. And then submit suggestions. I'm sure there's, again, some cool things people have thought of that I can't do. And if you'd like to ask me some stuff I haven't thought of or cover here, that's my Twitter handle. And that is the talk. Thank you. And that was the Q&A part, obviously. Yes, sir.
You got the attention of Portswigger yet?
Yes, they just retweeted. Actually, it's a retweet of a retweet. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, he asked if Portswigger has noticed it yet. Just probably like 30 minutes ago, they retweeted a retweet from HackerOne about the talk. So, yes. Anything else? Yes, ma'am. So she was asking if while you're doing work, if like I make a change or request, and is she going to know if I did that? The answer is no. That's actually a good idea. Yeah, there's actually a nice way to do that because I don't want to pop like pop-up boxes. That would be annoying. But you can actually, if you change something in a tab, it lights it up. So probably what I'll do actually is just put like a hidden notification on, there's a Burp TC like tab for the plugin. I'll probably put like a hidden counter you can't see and just like move that, like toggle it, and it should change the thing to white. The thing I worry about that is, yeah, that's a good idea. So the answer is no, it's just kind of streaming live. You will notice Repeater. If I share you a Repeater payload, the Repeater tab will light up because there's a new Repeater payload. But the actual just live request in the target map, no, you'd have to be watching. Good question, thank you. Yes, sir.
You
client side or server side, and can each tester set who they're muting while they're doing the testing?
Correct. So he asked, is the muting handled client side or server side? It is actually a state of the server. It's stored client as well, right? So yes, every single user can control who they mute and when they mute them. And you can mute, again, you can mute everybody at once or like hand pick people you want to mute and unmute. Thank you. Question.
So we have because this is your first talk at a HackerCon and you've performed so well in Proving Ground, we want to award you a most improved fidget spinner.
Oh, thank you.
For guiding you through this process.
Yes.
World's most okayest mentor.
Oh, yes. All righty. Well, if that's all for questions, that's all. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Is it possible to kick people that join your server?
It's a good question. So no, not yet, but that is something very useful for 2.0, especially as I start working with some people who do the type of like live streaming or they want to and that is kind of one of the interesting things I've been talking to people this week about, right, is using this in a collaborative setting on like Twitch to like play along with people as they're teaching a topic. And of course there will always be trolls. And so yes, that's something in 2.0, the people whoever's running the room will have the ability to boot people off the room, for sure. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Have you considered actually adding, now that you have a chat server, have you considered adding chat in line there so you don't have to go out of platform? Or is that not really?
I've thought about it. The one thing I worry about is almost putting too much on the UI. And like at least I always do. The people I've seen hacking, they always have like another window with Slack or Discord or what have you. So it seems a bit of like a repeated use case. I don't know if, I personally wouldn't like it, but fork it, do it yourself. But yeah, so no, I wasn't planning on putting an actual dedicated chat server in there. But thank you. Question. All right, thank you.